Talk the Mishnah on Kuf Tes Vav Amud Aleph. Seder Nachlos Kachu. Seder of inheritance is as follows. Ishki Yamus Beini Lova Vartemes Nachlos Solabito. If a person has no son, so then it goes to his daughter. What was the Hebrew name?
Binyamin ben Menachem Mendel.
Binyamin. I knew the Menachem Mendel part. I didn't know the Binyamin. Binyamin ben Menachem Mendel. Shamash Avin Aliyah. So the way you go with the Nachlos is, we know, son, daughter, father, siblings, closest relative. So Ish Kiyamus Ubenin Lo, if he has no son, Vavartem Es Nachlaso Labito, then it goes to his daughter. Ben Kodem Labas, Kol Yotzi Recho Shel Ben Kodem Labas. Like we said, son, then daughter, but sons, and sons' daughters, and sons' kids get to inherit in place of their father. So it's son or any of his progeny, any of his offspring, then daughter. Bas Kodemis La'achin, a daughter goes before the brothers, which is the siblings of the deceased, and also not only does the daughter go before the brothers, Yotzei Recha Shel Bas Kodmin La'achin, her progeny goes before the brothers as well. Achin Kodmin La'achia Av, the brothers go before the paternal uncle, Yotzei Recha Shel Achin Kodmin La'achia Av, and their sibling and their progeny goes before the brother. Where does the father play? In Zeh Klal. Kol HaKodnim B'Nachla Yotzei Recha Kodmin. Anybody who comes first in the Nachala, so their progeny goes first. Ve'av kodem l'kol yotzei yirecho, and the father goes before any yotzei yirecho. And the Rashbam points out anybody who comes from him, which is siblings of the deceased, but people that come from the actual deceased, i.e., the son and the daughter, go before the father. So again, son and any of his what?
Total stereo.
No, it's not a steer at all. Zakla kol kodem b'nachla yotzei recho kodmin. First rule is that anybody who comes first, so their progeny comes first. So again, son, and then grandson would come before daughter. The son's son would come before the daughter, even though it's son and then daughter. It's a son and then anybody who takes the place of the son, which is any of his progeny. Then the daughter. That's the first rule, which is what we discussed last week when we introduced the parak. It's you or anybody who fills in for you. So it's son, daughter, father, siblings, closest relative. Grandfather fits in there somewhere. And then any of your progeny. So again, a granddaughter or a grandson would be before a daughter. As crazy as that sounds, and that's what the Gemara is going to talk about. And that's the first rule. Second rule is that ha'av kodem l'chol yotzei recho. In this Mishnah, it didn't say anything about the father. All we had was son, daughter, siblings. It says a father comes before anybody who's yotzei yirecho, his own yotzei yirecho. It doesn't mean a father comes before anybody who's progeny of anybody else. It just means that he comes before his own progeny, which means he comes before his children, which are the siblings of the deceased. But he will not come before the children of the deceased, which are his grandchildren. That's the point. He doesn't come before, comes before the ones that are Yotzei Yirecho, the ones that are directly Yotzei Yirecho, his children, but he doesn't come before his grandchildren, which are not directly Yotzei Yirecho, they're the children of his son. So again, son, daughter, father, siblings, closest relative. If you want to just see that Rashi, the Rashi says, the last Rashi in the Mishnah, Va'av kodem lirash beno obito shemesu l'chol yotzei yirecho dahainu achi hames. So if his son or daughter, Rahman al-San, dies, he gets before his own children, which are the brothers of the person who died. Kfar nafkalan, etc. V'dafka mi yotzei yirecho aval yotzei yirecho shel beno kodmin l'chol adam. But the Yotzei Recho of the son goes before anybody else, because just like the son, any of his children will go before anybody else.
What if the daughter has sons?
Same thing.
The father comes before.
No. Anybody who fills in for you, any of your progeny take over for you. So son and any of his progeny, daughter and any of her progeny. So if the daughter has any children at all, even a daughter,
There's a son with no children, and the son.
then the daughter comes. That's what's next. Right. So again, that's how the order is. Son, daughter. So if there's no son, it goes to the daughter. If there's a son with no children and he dies, it's as if he's not in the picture, it goes to the daughter. If she dies, then her children, if she has children, will get before the father. Because anybody's Yotzei Yirecho go next in line. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a granddaughter. Well, really, we're going to talk about a granddaughter, the son's daughter versus a daughter. So the granddaughter, seemingly, according to this rule, should get first. It sounds weird, but a granddaughter will get before a daughter because the granddaughter is stepping in for the son, and the daughter is stepping in for herself, but too bad, the son was there first. Zak the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, Ben, when we talk about Ben, if you're going to talk about, why? How do we know that the progeny get in general? Ben, Ein Li Ela Ben. We know the ben gets ben haben o bas haben, the grandson or the granddaughter, or ben bas haben, or the great grandson. Minayin. How do you know? It just gives examples, but it's really all the progeny. Talmud Lamar ein lo, uben ein lo. This is a drasha ayin alav, as Rashi explains. Rashbam explains. There's an extra yud. It should say ein lo. It could say like may ein bilam without a yud. The extra yud, you make a drasha ayin alav. Go check him out, and if he's not there, check out all of his descendants. Zok the Gemara, bas ein li ala bas. Similarly, when it says bas, I only know it's a bas. Bas abas, o ben abas, o bas ben abas. Minayin Talmud Lamar ein lo ayin alav. So ein lo ayin alav teaches me that not only do you inherit, but any of your children, we are ayin alav to see, and they inherit as well. Ha ketzad. Now, as the Rashbam explains, that's going down. So we know now ayin alav, you go down, which means that a great grandson, theoretically, from the son would inherit before a daughter. So we know that going down now, ayin alav. How does that work going up? Says the Gemara, nachla mishameshes mimashmeshes veholeches ad reuven. So the Gemara, as Rashbam explains, is saying that it goes up as well, which means, if Rahman Litzlan, again, it could happen, no kids, because even if they have kids, maybe the kids died. No kids, no father, no siblings, no grandfather. What happens? So ayin alav, says the Gemara, teaches us that we go up as well. Now there's nobody down, because there's no kids, no siblings, no nothing. But ayin alav teaches us you go up as well. So now you go to the father, no father. He has no siblings. You go to the grandfather, no grandfather. You go to the great-great-grandfather, eventually you're going to find somebody who had their own children, even though they're not alive, their children, ayin alav, their children will step in for them and will be able to inherit. So some guy will inherit, and he'll say, okay, you're inheriting this guy's property. He'll have no idea who the guy is, but he's a distant seventh cousin, and Lamaisa, this guy happens to not have any relatives, so you're going to inherit the property. V'lema ad Yaakov, why does it say if you're just trying to make a point that it goes all the way back to Reuven, why does it say it goes all the way back to Yaakov? Says the Gemara, Amar Abai, Gemire de lo kala shifta, just teaching us that no shevet will ever be destroyed. But you're right, it's as if it's saying it goes back to the beginning, to Yaakov. But didn't want to say Yaakov because they didn't want it to think that any shevet would be destroyed.
The point is that we don't go to the mother at all.
We don't go to the mother at all. You'll give a great-great-great-great-grandfather before you'll give a mother. Or before you'll give, somebody who's related through the mother. You'll go back 25 generations before you'll give the mother. Well, we'll see. We'll see. But even if it's not shevet, just in the Yerusha in general, it goes based on the paternal, not on the maternal. But maybe the original pshat was to keep it in the shevet. But it's not necessarily going to keep it in the shevet anyway, so you can't just say that's as far because, or else a daughter would never inherit. Therefore, there was a whole discussion. Is that why they chose Reuven?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's a good point. But I think that what you're saying is true, but you can't say that that's the pshat because, or else a daughter would never inherit. Or else it would be son, father, siblings. It would never be a daughter. We're going to see from today in just a minute that there is a discussion about by Binyamin and the Pilagish Begiva not giving to the granddaughters because he didn't want to go out of the Sheva. But that was an extreme case. But in general, a granddaughter inherits, and if she marries out, she marries out. Amarav Huna Amarav. Kola Omer Tirash Bas Imbas Haben Hafilu Nasi Shabisrael in Shomelo She'inan Elamas Stukin. Anybody who says that a daughter shall inherit with a granddaughter, even if they're a Nasi Shabisrael, we don't listen to him. Only the Stukim say such a thing because again, we hold that if it's a daughter and a granddaughter, who gets it? The granddaughter gets it. Titania, but the Stukim said no. And as we'll see, the Stukim didn't say that a granddaughter will get it. The Stukim didn't argue that a granddaughter should get it. The Stukim just said that a daughter should get a piece of the action also. It shouldn't just be the granddaughter. It should be the granddaughter with the daughter. Titania, be'arba ve'esrim be'teves, tivna ledinina. On the 24th of Teves, the din was shavna. It returned. Why? It means that they won the case. The Stukim felt that a daughter should inherit with a granddaughter. Rabbi Yochanan Mezakai joined them and fought with them. And Amar Lahed, Shotim, Minayin Zelachem. Why do you think that a daughter should inherit with a granddaughter? We just told you, Ayin Alav. Ayin Alav teaches us that if the son's not alive, we go to his children before it gets to the daughter. There was one old Saduki man who fought with him and said, Uma Baspino. He said, I'll tell you a Kal Vachomer. He was a Saduki, but he knew how to learn. Uma Baspino, haba mikoach beno. He says, I'm not going to take away the fact of ayin alav. I'm not going to take away the fact that the granddaughter should be able to inherit in place of her father, the son of the man who died, and therefore the granddaughter can inherit. But I want the daughter to get a piece of it also. Why? Says Kal Vachomer. Uma bas beno haba mikoach beno tirashenu. You're telling me now that at the end of the day, the granddaughter is inheriting. And how is the granddaughter coming? She's coming from the power of her father, which is the son of the deceased. Bito haba mikocho lo kol shekain. But the daughter is coming from her own power. Sounds like a good Kal Vachomer. Maybe you should be at Stuki. Okay. Zak the Gemara. Ma bas beno haba mikoach beno tirashenu. It's a good Kal Vachomer, but he's going to reject it and just on the top of the next daf. But it sounds like a good Kal Vachomer in the beginning. The granddaughter is coming from only her son's power. Abito is coming from her own power. She gets to inherit from her own power. Again, she's second in line, but when she inherits from her own power of being a daughter. Lo kol shekain. She should get a piece of the action. I understand that you have to give the granddaughter because ayin alav, but at the end of the day, Kal Vachomer, you should have to give the daughter too.
It's not because of her power, it's because of the deceased's power.
No. Saying,
Kocho.
what?
It says kocho, not kocha. Bito haba mi kocho.
So the son. Kohu.
Therefore what?
Who's the koach referring to?
Her
He's
connection.
deceased.
Her connection to the deceased.
But it's his power goes. Or you want to say the power. The reason the granddaughter gets it is because of the power that inheres in the son, who therefore transfers it down to the daughter.
Right.
His power comes from his father.
Right.
The
She gets the
daughter
same power from his father.
From the father. So
Yeah.
It's not her power. It's
No, but again, she's getting whatever power the granddaughter, however,
Yeah, all right.
It's like one's direct, one's indirect. No?
basically, if you want to say the only reason the granddaughter is here is because of the connection that her father has to the son.
But
That
straight
is the father has to the deceased. But this daughter has a direct connection to the deceased.
Yes.
She's got a direct line, and he's only got one line removed. She's basically one line removed. However you want to say it. Interesting. Okay. Zak the Gemara. Kara Alavis HaMikra. He said, well, you're right, but you're wrong. Why? Because the pasuk says, Eile b'nei Seir hachayri yoshvei haaretz. These are the sons of Seir. Lotan v'shoval v'tzivon v'ana. So you have four sons of Seir. Uchsiv, and then it says, Ve'ele b'nei Tzivon v'aya v'ana. Hu ana. So that's a little bit of a problem because you have ana on both lists. On one hand, ana is the son of Seir. Tosfos actually says that Anna is a woman, but that's a separate discussion. But Anna is a woman. El melamed shebat sivon al imo veholid Anna. If you learn Pashup Shad here is that Anna is the son of Seir, and it's also the son of Tzivon. How can he be the brother? So something doesn't work. He's the son of Seir, the brother of Tzivon, and also the son of Sivon. So El melamed shebat sivon al imo veholid Anna. So Tzivon had relations with his mother and had Anna. So it's his son, but it's also his brother because it's the same mother, but it's also his son because he's the father. Now, obviously, the proof is that B'nai Seir now is obviously not literal. When it says B'nai Seir, so what does it mean? It's not Seir's son, it's Seir's grandson. So you could say it's Seir's grandson. So the Gemara asks your question, V'dilma trei anahavu. I'm going to tell you something that the Shmuel Malka never said, and who's the Shmuel Malka? That's Shmuel. So I'm going to tell you something that the Shmuel Malka didn't say, either Shmuel or Rabba. Amar Kra, hu ana, the very part of the Pasuk, it says, Vana, hu ana demei kara. It's the same ana. So at the end of the day, what comes out? You have the thing that ana is Sivon's son and Sivon's brother, and yet it calls him Seir's son. Which we see that what? Grandchildren are like children, and therefore a granddaughter will be stronger than a daughter, because if it's a granddaughter, then it's like the son, because it's the daughter of the son, and therefore, if the grandchildren are like children, then they go first. So he rejects the Kal Vachomer. Says in Gemara, the Stuki's not, again, he's a smart Stuki. Amarle Rebbe, bekachata potrani. This is where you're going to be potrani. Look at the Rashbam on the bottom. Last Rashbam on the page. Bitmiya. Halogamani modelacha de ben haben yoresh et zekeno. Vafilu b'malkom bas. I agree with you. Don't get me wrong, said the Stuki. I agree with you that a grandson takes the place of a son, and therefore he's going to get before a daughter. Aval Basa ben hu damrina shatira shabasim. But we're not discussing a grandson. We're discussing a granddaughter. And therefore, again, I'm not going to go so far, he says, to say that the granddaughter should not inherit at all in the face of a daughter. But you can't prove to me that it says that he's a son of Seir, and therefore a grandson is exactly like a son and takes his place and gets everything. I'll argue with you that's only by a grandson. But by a granddaughter, then at least I'll have to fit it 50-50. Yes, ayin alav, so they'll have to give the granddaughter something, but the daughter comes mitzad her own koach, kal v'chomer. Zok the Gemara, amar lo shota, v'lo tehe Torah shlema shalanu kisicha b'teila shalachem. Let's not minimize our Torah. You're making the Torah into nonsense. Why? Listen to this. Ma libas, it's beautiful. Ma libas bino shekain ko yafe kocha b'makom ha'achin. It's not a good kal v'chomer. Why? Because we know that the granddaughter has power in place of the sons. Tomar bibito shehora kocha b'makom achin. And the daughter does not have power in the place of the achin. So the granddaughter is actually stronger. What's that? Well, what's the pshat? What happens when you have, again, we've been talking about a case where you have one son and a daughter. The son dies, now you have the daughter, which is a granddaughter, and the daughter of the deceased, her aunt. So this is what we're discussing. And your kal v'chomer is, well, you got to give a piece to the aunt because the aunt comes straight, direct line, and the granddaughter is going through. He says it's not true because you're misreading it. You're concentrating on one aspect, but if you think about it, the granddaughter is actually stronger than the daughter. Why? Because what happens if you have more than one son? Let's say you have 3 sons and one dies. And this is the daughter of the one who died. So now you got 2 sons and the granddaughter. Who gets what? Who gets what? The granddaughter gets a third, and the son gets a third, and the son gets a third. So the granddaughter can hold her own ground when it comes to the father's brothers, her uncles. What happens when you have 2 sons and a daughter left by a deceased? Who inherits? The 2 sons. So a daughter cannot even hold her own place. She's not strong enough to inherit when it's her versus her 2 brothers. A granddaughter is strong enough to be able to inherit even versus her uncles. Therefore, you see that really a granddaughter is stronger than a daughter. If a granddaughter is stronger than a daughter, then you can't prove to me, kal v'chomer. There's no kal v'chomer. Because I've just shown you that a granddaughter, at least in certain aspects, right? Anytime you have a kal v'chomer, if you can reject and say that it's not really strong, you have no kal v'chomer. So you can't say if the daughter is stronger, so then for sure she should get if the granddaughter gets a piece. Saying no, the daughter's not stronger. You see from over here that the granddaughter, if anything, is stronger. Or neither one is stronger because you have one direct line where you say the daughter's strong and you say, but I see the granddaughter stronger, so neither stronger, so now we're going to go back to our drasha. But your whole proof was that we have a kal v'chomer that the daughter's stronger. It's not a good kal v'chomer. There's nothing. It's a very simple. No, it's a very simple calculation. The granddaughter will always get it. The granddaughter gets over a daughter. Of course.
If the son were still living, he would have gotten everything.
That's it. That's the pasha thing you just have to walk away with. You step in. It's as if you're coming. Granddaughter is not a granddaughter. Granddaughter is a son. It's the bottom line. Granddaughter is a son. She's holding up a sign that says, "I inherit as a son."
Other grandsons, the grandsons get before the granddaughter.
If there are grandsons, then the grandsons would get before the granddaughter. Correct. Correct. If you're saying if there's a son with grandson, granddaughter, then the grandsons.
That son will not be over the daughter from the son.
No, of course, but he's not talking about it. He's talking about you have a son who dies, one son who dies, grandson, granddaughter. They'll inherit over the daughter. And the 2 grandsons will inherit and not the granddaughter.
This is basically what you assume is that it all goes to the son, and since he's not there, it goes to his descendants.
If the son died before the father, does that make a difference?
Well, no, same thing. If the son dies, so then if he has any sons, it's the same level. Son, daughter, father. The father inherits a son only if that son has no children. Well, that's the case. The case of a father inheriting his son is in a case where the son had no children. If the son had children, the father gets nothing.
And if there's 2 sons and one son dies and there's a child, is that first line son getting it all?
No, that's what we just said.
He's splitting it with.
That's what we just said. Right. That's what the Gemara just said. That
he's here and they're down.
It doesn't matter. They're not coming down here. They're coming mitzad their father. That's what we just said in the Gemara. that she comes ahead. That's what it says here. Ma lebas beno shekein yafek kocha b'makom achin. That's the proof. She's the granddaughter, and she inherits b'makom achin. When it's granddaughter, uncle, she's going to get a third. That's the exact case. As opposed to daughter, son, she's going to get nothing. It's a beautiful thing. V'nitzchum ve'osayom aso yantiv. And they defeated, and that day they made a yantiv. I don't know what yantiv was. Vayomru, and they said, this is a new thing. Vayomru, Yerushas Pleta lebinyamin v'lo yimcha sheva mi Yisrael. So this was after the case of the Pilagish Begiva. How many men survived? 600 men from the tribe of Binyamin survived. And they went ahead, what? And they went ahead, and what did they do? They got all the land. So they got big portions of land, because if there were only 600 left and they split up all the land, so now each person, again, this goes back to what you said before, Rabbi, that when all of Binyamin was there, so if one girl married out, you lost you lost one house. But when you're splitting up the entire land between 600 people, if one of them marries out now, that's 1/600th of the entire land. That's a tremendous amount of land. So it says, Vayimru Yerushas Pleta lebinyamin v'lo yimcha shevet mi Yisrael. Amar Rav Yitzchak, debei Rabbi Ami, milamet shehitnu al shevet binyamin shalatirash bas haben ima achin. So in that specific case, we said that if you have son, granddaughter, in that specific case, a granddaughter will not inherit. In general, son, granddaughter each get a third. Son, granddaughter by Shevet Binyamin, it would be half and half to the two sons because we don't want it marrying out. Now, we found this to be interesting because it's not like they got rid of the daughters. That means if there were no sons and there was just a daughter, then the daughter would inherit. So they made a t'nai that if you're a girl, if you're a woman in Binyamin, if you're a daughter who's going to inherit, then the t'nai is that you can't marry out. So I just wasn't sure 100% why they couldn't just make the t'nai with the granddaughters. They went ahead and they went so far to say granddaughters are not even inheriting at all. Son, granddaughter, half, nothing. However, if it were no sons and it was just a daughter of the deceased, so then the Lamaisa you gave the daughter, you just told her she can't marry out of the tribe. So just found it interesting that they didn't make. There's a long Rashi here, so you can read that Rashi. But I didn't see exactly why it would be that they didn't just make that condition with the granddaughter and say here's a third and just you can't marry out. But that's what they made. They made a gzera to prevent it, where they went ahead. I guess it just wasn't as common. It was probably more common for the granddaughter to inherit than for the daughter to inherit.
Because of the power Hefker Bezdin.
That what?
The reason that they're taken away from the granddaughter is Hefker Bezdin.
You're saying because right? So you're saying because the granddaughter in general does not get mitzvah Torah, it's only based on ayin alav?
No. I'm saying that she should get al pidin.
Right.
So the Bezdin can make property Hefker.
So why can't you make the property Hefker when a daughter is supposed to inherit? That's my question.
No, they make it Hefker for the
My question was that when it came to a granddaughter inheriting, they said the granddaughters don't inherit because we don't want the land to go out of the tribe of Binyamin. But when it came to a daughter inheriting, they didn't make the same gzera. They said a daughter can inherit, she just can't marry out. So why don't we make the same gzera and say a granddaughter can inherit, she just can't marry out either? It sounds like the gzera that they made was that granddaughters don't inherit at all. Daughters still inherit, they just can't marry out once they inherit. That was my only question. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Anybody who doesn't leave any children, again, it's not clear if it means specifically your son or descendants. Seemingly descendants to be Yoresh them. So Kadosh Baruch Hu gets angry with you. Obviously, it's not talking about somebody who couldn't, but somebody who chooses not to. It uses the word v'avartem. You should give it over. It's a sad day or an angry day. So just like it says evra and avartem, if you don't have anybody to pass up the nachla to, Hakadosh Baruch Hu gets angry. Similarly, asher ein chalifos lamo, there's no replacement. V'lo yireh Elokim. So the Gemara learns that if there's no replacement for you, then you're not a yireh Elokim. You're not a person who fears God. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Chad amar kol she'eino meniach ben. So there was a machlokes. When it says that you're not a Yirei Elokim, does it mean because you didn't actually leave descendants, or you didn't leave any Talmidim? Tistayim, so one of them says descendants, one of them says Talmidim, one of them says Ben. Tistayim, Rabbi Yochanan Damar Talmid. It must be Rabbi Yochanan's the one who said that if you don't leave any Talmidim, if you don't leave any descendants, you're still a Yirei Elokim. If If you don't leave any Talmidim, you're not Yirei Elokim. Why? Why do we assume it's Rabbi Yochanan? The Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan used to carry around. We know, unfortunately, hard to understand, Rabbi Yochanan lost 10 sons. He used to carry around the bone of his 10th son who died in order to comfort himself and to comfort other mourners. So he said, Din Garme de Asira Bir. This is the bone of my 10th son. Tistayim de Rabbi Yochanan Damar Talmud. It must be that Rabbi Yochanan held Talmud. Why? As the Rashbam explains, because he wouldn't have walked around holding this bone, even for comforting purposes. He wouldn't have held up this bone if this bone basically says, look, I'm not a Yirei Elokim because I have no children to inherit me. So it must be that he held it up in order to comfort people. And when he said that you're not a Yirei Elokim if you don't have any descendants, it means you're not a Yirei Elokim if you don't have any Talmidim. So it had nothing to do with the fact that he was holding up the bone, and therefore he could hold up the bone and still be a Yirei Elokim. And once Rabbi Yochanan says that it's a Talmud, and we know the other opinions of Yeshua, so Rabbi Yeshua holds that if you don't leave any ben, you're not Yirei Elokim. Says the Gemara, by Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi lo azil lebeitam yel lebeiman deshachiv below bani. But we know that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi never went to a base Avel, because he didn't want to be Mevatel Torah. He only went to a base Avel when they died without any children. Dichtiv bacho bacha laholech. So this is a proof the other way. How could it be that Rabbi Yeshua holds that if you don't leave a ben, then you're not a Yirei Elokim? Why would he go to the house of an Avel who didn't leave any bens, if they're not Yirei Elokims? Says the Gemara, it must be Rama Yudna Marav, Laholech below Ben Zachar. I'm sorry, this is a continuation. And it must be that it's Laholech, it means without a Ben Zachar. And again, it can't be that he's the one who held that if you don't have any sons, you don't have any children, then Lamaisa, you're still a Yirei Elokim. Then, sorry, if you don't have any children, you're not a Yirei Elokim, because then he wouldn't go to the Beis Avel, because then these people are not Yirei Elokims. Why is he wasting his time visiting people that are not Yirei Elokims? Ela Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who Damar Talmud. Either it must be Rabbi Shua ben Levi, since he visited houses of people who didn't have any children, didn't have any descendants. It must be that he holds that if you don't leave any descendants, you're still a Yirei Elokim. When are you not a Yirei Elokim? If you don't leave any Talmidim. When we do Rabbi Shua ben Levi, who Damar Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Ben. Rabbi Yochanan says, if you don't leave any sons, you're not a Yirei Elokim. And then we have the problem the other way. If you're not a Yirei Elokim, if you don't leave any sons, so how can Rabbi Yochanan walk around with this bone basically saying, I'm not a Yirei Elokim because I don't have any sons? So the Gemara, Kasha Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yochanan. Lo kasha hadidei hadirabe. No. He was quoting his Rebbe. His Rebbe held that if you don't have any sons, you're not a Yirei Elokim, which is weird, because his Rebbe basically held about him that if he didn't have any sons, he's not a Yirei Elokim. Rabbi Yochanan, walked around with the bone. Rabbi Yochanan himself actually agreed with Rabbi Yoshua. He agreed that if you don't have any sons, you're still a Yirei Elokim. It's just if you don't have any Talmidim, you're not a Yirei Elokim. And therefore he was able to hold around the bone. Lamaisa, when it says that he held that if you don't have any sons, you're not a Yirei Elokim, it wasn't quoting his own opinion, he was quoting the opinion of his Rebbe.